founder of Raaise, Amy Carter-James in, Margaret River, right? South of Perth in Australia.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm calling in from Southwest Australia, just outside Margaret River. As you can see, it's a beautiful day. It's going to get darker soon because it's, 5 o'clock here. But it's beautiful at the moment. And I'm also on Noongar country, which is the Aboriginal people who have been here for thousands and thousands of years. And it is a tradition that's gone back, again, thousands of years to acknowledge and respect the people whose lands you are on. So I want to give enormous respect and huge acknowledgement to the Noongar people, community, the leaders past, present, future, and so grateful to be here. This beautiful spot.
Yeah, and you even bring your own sort of sound effects, bird life in the background.
Oh, it's real. It's not just a backdrop. It's the real trees and birds.
It's amazing. So we're really excited to be back here. This is our second meetup. Thanks for joining. Let us know in the chat where you're joining from. I can already see, Sonia and Stephanie. We've got Stefan joining us from Vienna. So let us know where you're joining from. It's lovely to hear. And also, we're particularly interested in one of the big points of Raaise is sharing brilliant startups working on the climate crisis. So we've got 4 fantastic ones to introduce you to this morning in detail, but we want to hear about more all the time. So what's your favorite current climate startup? What are they doing? Share a link. What are you working on? So please use the chat to share those kind of thoughts as we go, and any questions you've got for our founders as we start the conversations. But just for a couple of minutes before we introduce our first founders fixing the climate, to give you context of why we're all here, and even in the month since we last met, Amy, for our first Raaise event, the news just keeps coming that it's really clear, whether you're reading the UN reports or following climate scientists or even now reading mainstream media, that we're pushing against our planetary boundaries. And it's frightening and it drives a lot of fear. But as I was reminded by this great Rosa Parks quote, which I think I read in the Sarah Wilson book this month, knowing what must be done does away with fear. And obviously she's one of the great activists in history, right? So it's this reminder to all of us that yes, we're up against something bigger than we've ever been collectively. But having a plan, having purpose, having something to work on that can tackle what we can play our part is the best antidote to that. And I really feel that being part of this project as well. And seeing all the things that have been going on in the last month. Yesterday, I was joined in remotely with the Climate Tech Week in London, and companies like Olio, which is a food waste app here in the UK, but spreading very quickly around the world in the same space as Deepak's business in food waste. And they raised $43 million this month for a food waste app. And Tessa, who's one of the co-founders, reminded us at the event yesterday that she said, I believe there will be no greater return than saving humanity, which is what we exist to do. So it's such an exciting time to be in this space. It's such a necessary time to be in this space. What's been happening in your world this month, Amy?
It's been a big one, really big. So not quite the scale of Deepak or Olio, but the last dollars of investment for our round just hit the account over the last month. So we are so happy to have sort of soft closed. Yes, cheering is fantastic. It's been quite a long journey to get here. But now the work really begins, which is what's so exciting. So I won't go into all the exciting legal stuff we're doing and tech and so on, but it's just I just wanted to say that what we believe in really passionately will probably sound quite odd to quite a few people, is the fact that startups will save us. Like, it sounds a bit strange that we're talking about tiny little businesses that are going to save humanity, but startups have got such a huge role to play in the climate crisis. And, it shifts. We're building these entrepreneurs. Kristen, Deepak, Priska, Sam are all building where we are going to be putting our money and where our world is going, where we're shaping shaping where we're going to put our money and where the direction of the business and of the world. So, you know, looking back 10 years ago, the biggest companies now were startups. It is just so important to focus on helping these startups, these incredible people like the four we're just about to meet, to be able to fly. And I really like the quote that Richard Curtis has, which is along the lines of, the entrepreneurs are going to be the next Gandhis, Mandelas of the world, because they're going to be shaping our planet going forward. And also I kind of wanted to add that I think Anita Roddick should be on that list too, because she's a woman and she was so inspiring, I know, for me and for so many others, and her impact was so huge. And it's such a good example of how startups are going to be shaping our future. I don't know, Ben, you've got a passion for Anita too.
Well, just briefly, yeah. So I think Sam's in Brighton this morning. We're going to meet Sam, and Anita in 1979 opened at the back of her flat on the North Lanes of Brighton, a little shampoo shop. And of course, the thing then was like, how am I going to differentiate from the other shampoo shops on the North Lanes of Brighton? And it's like, well, a core value for me is not to test on animals in the making of these shampoos. So she kind of put the body shop, painted it green, not tested on animals. And that was the beginning of the change of that industry. And of course, it took 10, 15 years. But now we've seen that whole industry in the beauty space, that it kind of shift. And we're going to hear more about that this morning with soap. And so it's amazing to see the influence that an individual can have when they start with that intention and put that at the core of their business model and their mission. So who is going to be the next Anita Roddick? Well, there's a good chance that we've got at least one of them in our midst this morning. So Amy, who's going to be joining us from Australian founders today?
Right. I've got two phenomenal women. Very pleased I've got two such strong and inspiring women in Team Australia. So we've got Kirsten, who is the founder of Designer X. And I'll let her tell her story, obviously, but she's got, I don't know if I've got this right, the largest stock of designer dresses online that people can rent. It's basically doing away with fast fashion. It's about circular economy, reducing waste, and really fixing an industry that needs a lot of fixing. And then we've got the very inspiring Priska, who originally hails from Kenya, who's now in Melbourne. And she has started Bearsop, which is it's creating soap, but without any plastic. It's incredible. She's worked really hard. She'll tell you about creating like a powder that you can put in and it dissolves and makes soap. It is so smart and it's going to have a big impact. I think it's going to go boom.
All right. No pressure on scaling it there, Kirsten and Priska. Now I'm going to start with some quick fire questions and then we'll get into your stories. So welcome. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, can you see my face? Because I can't see my face.
I can't see your face right now, Priska. We can hear you, but maybe if you just leave the room and come back in, and then it might work. Second time round. But Kirsten, kicking off with you, what's your favorite climate startup that isn't Designer X at the moment?
Yeah, well, like we were talking earlier, it's a hard question because there's so many solving different problems. And startups, like Amy said, they're the ones that are going to fix the problems because they're agile. They've got new ideas, a fresh take on life. So startups are the answer. I mean, in terms of a startup, I love Frank Green in terms of because I love coffee. But in terms of my industry, I love KidX in terms of a fashion brand. She is at the forefront of sustainability and approaches fashion from all angles in terms of using regenerating, using waste and using that to make clothes. Also approaching it, pre-ordering clothes instead of just making a bunch and hopefully she'll sell it all kind of thing. So I love KidX from a fashion point of view.
Awesome. And those of you following chat, someone look up KidX and drop the link in there so we can all check it out. Thank you.
Yeah,
and next question, Kirsten, is what do you do when you're feeling overwhelmed by work and the magnitude of the climate emergency? Do you what's your way of getting back on track, being positive and building the solution that you're working on?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of talk about this and like how do businesses approach fixing these problems, because there's so much to do. So I think firstly you just got to do one thing at a time. But in terms of business and just trying to relax, definitely just closing the laptop, going for a fresh air walk, and just getting off the devices in terms of just getting rid of the getting overwhelmed. That's definitely, yeah, something I do.
Get away from all. Now, Priska, I've added you back in. I don't think we can see you yet, but you might need to leave the whole room. But we'll ask you these questions to get your voice going on the action anyway. So, favorite climate startup, and what do you do when you're overwhelmed?
Right. My favorite startup is definitely Raaise. What Raaise does is they help you live a carbon positive life. So what they do is they actually offset your carbon footprint. And I do love that. They make it so easy for businesses and homes. Everyone really can do it. So I think that's amazing.
So that's Raaise, great. And what do you do when you're feeling up against it all or overwhelmed by the magnitude of the problem we're facing?
Well, I've got 3 things that I fall back into, and one is being active. So I'll get out, I'll go for a run. I love running. It really helps me clear my head and just find my balance again. I'm also an avid wellness believer, so I do fall back into meditation and yoga. Yeah, those 3.
Good combo if you get in practice. Right, Amy, should we dig into the stories?
Yeah. Well, why don't we go for Kirsten first and see if the video can jump back for Priska?
I know.
I'll get you on the chat, Priska. We'll sort it out.
Okay. So it would be really great to hear from you, your climate journey. Like where did it start? Was it just a moment? What led you down this path? Was it just like one big thing that was struck you, or was it like 1,000 little cuts? Like what was it that propelled you on this journey?
Yeah, well, I was, working a job in real estate, and there was a definitive moment that happened where I saw a problem. It wasn't clear to me at that time that it was a climate issue or a consumption issue. It was literally kind of a first world problem in terms of accessing clothes, but deep down it was because I didn't want to waste anything, which is why I came across the problem. So looking for an outfit for a special occasion and just knowing deep down that I was only going to wear this item or dress once, and I just couldn't fork out so much money, and just knowing I was just going to not want it again. There was going to be no use to it after I wore it once. So I thought there's got to be a better way for me to access these nice things and not have to waste them, or not have to be in this position of spending heaps of money for something I'm only going to wear once. So that's where the predicament came for me. And then across the journey, when we started building out the company, we realized that this is a huge problem that we're actually solving in terms of not just from the consumer side, but also doing well for the earth, the globe. So that's kind of where it started, me standing in a boutique in the Strand Arcade here in Sydney, and just thinking there's got to be a better way to access these nice things.
And when was that? Just take us back to what year was that now?
That was literally, end of 2014, a job. So then, it just started mulling in our head that we just started, myself and my co-founder, we looked at what was, if someone was solving this. And so basically there was a kind of a bit of a need which we found on Facebook. So little groups trying to rent out their dresses and trying to rent dresses. But there was no secure platform to be able to trust each other and rent clothing off each other. There was inventory-based models coming out, but they weren't solving the problem of the individual buying something from the designer, for example, and having nowhere to go to make money from it.
And what is, I know you've shared before when we've spoken about like an example of like a dress being worn however many times. It's like, give us little anecdotes, like what is the impact that you're having?
Yeah. So we really focus on designer dresses and outfits because we've really seen that that's the moment when women want something just one-off. It's seasonal. You're going to a wedding. For example, mustard might be in that season, but it's not going to be next year. So that's, just in terms of accessing designer fashion. But some case studies. We've seen up to 30 times. So, and we've actually interviewed this lender before. So she bought a few dresses, she said, for her engagement party. She said she went a little bit overboard. And so she thought she'd pop some listings on and see if she could just kind of offset the money that she had spent. So there's that guilt coming in. And she ended up renting out the dress 30 times. So she bought this dress. It wasn't even too expensive. Just everyone wanted to wear it. It was worth $400 and she rented it 30 times. She made $2,500 back from this dress. So there's that kind of motivation from that side. But she's also saved 30 different girls that wanted something once off, which typically these girls would have probably not bought this brand, but gone to maybe a fast fashion outlet for that quick new look that they were after. So that at scale is the kind of impact we want to have.
I just wanted to come in, Kirsten, and saying, because it's so interesting. We've seen a lot of these sustainable fashion startups come in at kind of mid to low, not fast fashion end, but in the middle. And obviously you're focusing on the high end. And is the big challenge in the high end market to change consumer behavior? When you see something like the Met Gala and okay, there's some fashion activism there, but does it really filter through to change the behavior? Or is it more about shifting the whole supply chain, or is it equally both? Where's the real shift have to happen?
Yeah, good question. I think it's set 2030 is set to where circular economy is set to take over fast fashion. We believe that you should be able to access nice brands. And that's where we're coming in. We're providing our users with the tools and the security tools to be able to trust each other and just make this just a new behavioral aspect of consuming fashion.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was watching that reporting the other night, and obviously you saw that activism from AOC and others at the Met Gala, which is a big event in your calendar, right? Yeah. Do you think that works though? So if is there evidence from within your business and what other reports you're reading that the role models, the influencers in the world of fashion are like their behavior change is shifting behavior change in the industry as well?
I think awareness is always a good thing. So I think something like that, I think when we're trying to change something so big like fashion,
oh, is Kirsten frozen for you, Amy?
Yes, she is frozen for me too.
Oh, no.
Oh, there you're back, I think.
Oh, she's back. She's back. Go on, carry on, Kirsten.
I think awareness is always a good thing. So I think educating people and highlighting that this is a problem and we should be thinking about this and you should be aware of it is definitely a good thing. But I think like startups like ourselves need to keep going and be able to provide that outlet to actually give consumers what they need. So what we're doing is what we've found also, and research says this, is that women don't necessarily want to go and just consume a sustainable brand because it's sustainable. They want to access the brands that they love, and they expect them to be sustainable, and they expect to be able to trust them and just consume that brand, knowing that they're accessing that in the best way. So so we're providing the access and the rental access, and the brands need to, you know, look at their supply chains and all of that.
And of course, here at Raaise, like Amy and I, we're really interested in like, how's the business going? Because without it being a sustainable model financially, then we can't scale up and make the big change. So where are you at? How's it all going, and what's next?
It's going really well. Every month we get hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of design addresses listed on the platform. So we basically also market to the demand side, because the listings just pour in, which kind of show that women want this outlet. They want to purchase the brands from the brands, like I said. They want to purchase from them, but they also need this outlet to justify the purchase, and to get rid of kind of that guilt that they're not actually using it that much. So it's going really well. We've got over 25,000 listings. We've launched in the US. We're a peer-to-peer model, so the scale is at our fingertips, and the scalability. And that's, we really want to be a global dress rental solution. Wherever you are in the world, you can just tap into the app and have the same user experience anywhere in the world. We're not restricted with inventory, or in terms of warehousing inventory and cleaning inventory. So as a business, we are on a mission to give as many technology tools and support to our users as possible to make it an easy and seamless rental experience.
And what about the bumps? What about the tough parts? Like, what's been really difficult, and what do you see? What are some of your biggest challenges, sort of looking forward as well?
Yeah, probably the biggest challenge. I mean, we've got it's super exciting, and it's a growing industry, which is so amazing for us. The biggest challenge, I guess, is my co-founder and I. We're not technical, so we did in hindsight make an amazing decision to build our technology platform custom built. So we can do anything with it. We can give any type of integration we need to provide our users. So we're essentially a technology company as well that play in the fashion space. So, you know, technology is always a little bit, you know, bumpy.
It's amazing that you've got the scale that you have without any core tech on the team yet, but obviously you're building this very wisely with people. So it's fantastic here. Now we've got Priska here. Now we might not be able to see her. Hey, Priska. Hey Priska, guys. You're with us. We can hear you loud. Now Priska's got the biggest smile, but we can't quite see it this morning. But if you look on her site, you'll see it. Stay with us, Kirsten, because we want to come back to you. So Priska, we kicked off with a couple of quick fire questions for Kirsten.
Right.
And we talked about this. So favorite climate startup. Did you already share this?
I did actually. I did share Trace.
Trace, that was it. Yes.
I can put it on the chat so everyone can see.
Great.
Should I put it on the comments? Yeah, that's the one.
Go for it.
There we go. Yeah, you guys check it out.
Fabulous. I'd say, Priska, the big question I've got for you is about your climate journey. Same question as I asked Kirsten. What was it that led you to this point right now? And was there one specific wake up moment, or what was it that pushed you in this direction?
Right. I think we've had this conversation, Amy, and really it was almost like a light bulb of how do we own this narrative, right? Like, let's not push the back. We actually have the power to do every little bit we can, even if it's a small scale. And if we are doing it in mass, that's where the difference is going to come from. So in essence, it began from finding out that there isn't much solution for the bathroom in terms of single-use plastic waste. Really, there's a lot happening in the kitchen, as we probably know, but the bathroom was never at the forefront. So really going back into why is that? And that took me onto a research journey that obviously led us to speak to hundreds of people to find out, do you actually have this problem, or is it just us as a family that we actually cannot find a solution to do the right thing with our bathroom products? And really, if you look at it, like, showering and washing our hair and our hands is something we do all the time. It's literally like eating. And now imagine the amount of waste that's creating. So that was really mind-blowing for us.
And you've actually got quite an interesting background. Obviously, you came from Kenya, which I mentioned, but you've kind of got it in your DNA, it seems like, sort of the impact side. Would you agree that you're sort of an impact entrepreneur at heart, and this journey brought you to this point?
Yes, I would actually agree to that, Amy. So really, before Bear Soap, I come from a product design background or passion. And before this, the other two sort of startups in a smaller scale were really about either using a recycled sort of waste as well, and sort of take an everyday product, and that was bags at the time, and really bring the sustainability focus to it. And so that was one startup, and the other one was really in the fashion business, and that was really about having a transparent supply chain. That really wasn't a thing then. That was probably 10 plus years ago. So.
Oh yes, season pro on the impact startups, Prisca. Yeah. I'm interested in the product development. It's like talk us through, like, how did you start this? So plastic free soap containers. Like, what was the first version like, and then where has it got to?
Right. So really, initially, that's right. Actually, Ben, we have iterated this concept a number of times to where it is now. So it's not where it started. It began from wanting obviously to find a solution to the problem that I just spoke about. And I thought about opening a refill center in my neighborhood, but that wasn't going to work because it's not convenient. It's just not really going to solve the problem. So then we thought about how about doing a tablet version of that. So really taking out the water and just having the tablet version, and then finding out that actually that's not going to solve the problem as well, because our problem is the bathroom. And speaking to people, again, I said hundreds of people, and literally like having 10 minutes conversation or more, we found out that most people were not really open to having a tablet sort of to liquid form soap in their body. It's something you are actually happy to do for, like, for their table or the glass or their floor surfaces, but not really on their body. So we kind of had to think, how is this going to work? Like because really the problem again that we found out was that the water was the problem. The water is really the problem, and that's what was making it necessary to package these products in single-use plastic. So we wanted to take out the water. That was the challenge. So how do we do that? And it was literally, I would say, again, another light bulb. I must say, I was in bed. I was thinking, oh my God, the powder, like there's already like masks, this face mask, and that's made from powder. So there has to be a way. There has to be a way that actually that powder concept could be a place to start. So really talking to, I would say, hundreds of chemists and skincare chemists, and them saying it's never going to work. It can't happen, because how do you work around preservatives? How do you work around that product getting infected? How does it dry up? Anyway, we we gave it a go a few times, and we finally had a sample. So, sorry, a long story, but yeah.
No, it's the core, right? It's the product. It's what it's all built on.
Yeah.
And Priska, you're really early stage of this, aren't you? You're still pretty. Do you want to tell us sort of when it started and where you're up to right now?
Of course. So we had our MVP about October last year, and we launched a pilot with about 100 people in November, and that's the hand wash. There's a low barrier product at that time, way before COVID, actually, when we were doing this, but then COVID came, and that was really quite interesting. Right, so then we did the pilot with the hand wash. We've actually sold out 3 times now, and we are launching the body wash in about 2 weeks. We have the face wash coming in as well. We are already actually on board, I would say, Australia's 5 major large-scale retailers. So our volumes went from less than 10K to 100 plus within a 12-week time process. So
wow,
it's incredible, actually. We actually cannot meet demand at the moment, so we are trying to find solutions to those. But yeah, it's incredible. Actually, we are growing way too fast than we imagined at this early stage. Actually.
And I'd really recommend everyone to jump on both of their websites. But the Best Op branding, and it's really beautiful on the walls. Do have a look at it.
Yes.
And obviously order too.
I'm going to share it there. I've just shared it with everybody, so you can just go have a look.
Fabulous. Well, time's ticking, so I think we might have to go to the main question now to finish with both of you. Is kind of how can we help? How can we get behind you? What do you need support with? What can everyday people help with?
For us, I would say we are a community concept. This is a community solution. So the more people we bring along this journey, the more impact we can make. So if you can come along our journey, whether by subscribing to our emails, seeing how we are going, whatever you can do to come along the journey, that'll be amazing. Thank you, guys.
We can definitely do that.
Like what Priska said as well, like the more people that get on board with these types of startups and companies, the more impact we have. So specific for us, if you want to jump online and subscribe to our newsletter, or follow us on Instagram, share our Instagram with your friends, especially when you've got an event coming up. If you're a girl or anyone that needs a dress or an outfit for an event, a special occasion here in Australia and the US, UK coming up. Watch this space. And also we're speaking to investors right now. Always looking for tech developers as well. So. But ultimately, share the story. If you know anyone going to an event, definitely look at a better way to consume fashion. So if you're buying something, look at if it has any value on the rental market.
Fabulous.
That's the sound of dozens of Raaisers cheering you both. It's so impressive. We knew that before we met you today, but it's brilliant to hear your stories. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for having.
Thank you.
Thank you. Apologies for the technical problem, but yeah, lovely to be here. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Priska. Thanks, Kirsten.
Thank you.
All right, so we are now going to jump straight on to meet Deepak. Here he is, and Sam. And
sorry.
That's all right. Oh, there we go. Smooth switch. Hey, Sam. Hey, Deepak.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Ben. Hey, Amy. Good to be here. Thank you.
The world's just tipped upside down. We were all the Aussie side. Now we're 3 out of 4 on the UK side, but all global businesses. soon, if not now. So I know Sam and Deepak for a long time. I think Amy, you're meeting them both for the first time today. Is that right?
Yes, first time.
Fantastic. So to kick off, quickfire questions that we asked the ladies, both to you as well. Your favorite current climate startup that isn't yours, and what do you do when you're feeling overwhelmed by the crisis? Deepak.
All right. So favorite, I like to give. So we are in the food waste reduction space, and I'd like to use this opportunity to give a shout out to Spare Snacks, who do crisps out of fruit that might go to waste, and also kids snacks as well as Chickpea, who do a hummus brand out of surplus food. So, and the reason I want to give the shout out is they were in the food waste space before us. They've not raised a lot of funding, and I love the way they have been kind of typical entrepreneurs, they're hustling their way through and essentially educating people about food waste as well. So they've come a long way. Essentially, they paved the route for us. So I love these brands. And in terms of what really kind of, how do I de-stress? I think someone mentioned this before, just going for a walk, simple pleasures. We've got a lot of green space where I live in South London. So just going to a park, sunshine on my face, in a big city. I think that's all I need to kind of de-stress.
Thanks, Deepak. What about you, Sam?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Ben. I was going to give a shout out to Van Moof, which is a Dutch e-bike brand. And the reason is, I think one of the big things that we need to kind of agree on is that to decarbonize our transport system and get out of our cars, we're going to need an awful lot more people riding bikes and being active in how they move around cities. Public transport can take some of the strain, but I think the numbers don't quite add up, and we're going to need to see a huge uptake of bikes. And Van Moof have done something really special. They've created they're kind of the Tesla of e-bikes. They've made them a desirable, nice product that's very integrated. It has sort of apps that track it and unlock it, and it's democratizing that kind of healthy, active e-mobility, which is going to be at the core of decarbonizing our cities and how we move about them. So yeah,
I love the fact that of course the Dutch have built the Tesla of the e-bike world. It had to be them. Fantastic. Amy, whose story would you like to dive in? Oh, Sam, you're going to tell us about how you deal with the overwhelm.
Yeah. I think like everyone else on the group, I tend to be seeking out quiet green spaces. I love mountain sports, so if I have a bit more time, I'll get a trip to go and ride my bike in the mountains, or go walking in the hills. So yeah, I'm very lucky. I've got the South Downs just on my doorstep here, so some nice countryside. Yeah.
Well, why don't we launch into Deepak story and Oddbox? So tell us, what was your journey? I've heard little snippets, and I can't wait to hear this from the horse's mouth, so to speak. How did you get to be sitting here right now talking about Oddbox?
Sure. So I was working, funnily enough, in an investment bank, solving rich people problems. And Emily, my wife, was working in a charity. And both of us wanted to work on a project that was solving a real world problem, whether it was social or environmental, and not just a capitalistic problem. And around the same time, my wife and I went to Portugal on holiday, and we came across local street markets. We sampled some kind of delicious food, and we came across this. I remember this really vividly. This ugly looking tomato, which just tasted absolutely delicious, and we always wondered, why was it that back home in the UK, we would always go to supermarkets and have perfect looking tomatoes in plastic packaging? Just didn't taste the same. And so that kind of prompted a bit of research around what was happening to these ugly fruit and veg. And we came across the problem of food waste, especially at farm level. So about 30% of all the food produced at a farm level doesn't even leave the farm gate. It's rejected because of supermarket specifications on size, shape, color, or because it's surplus to requirements. And becomes surplus to requirements if, for instance, there's a salad grower who's grown a particular amount of produce, and then there's kind of not warm weather. So essentially the demand drops at supermarkets, and therefore all that salad that is grown gets left on the field to rot. And that for us was criminal, just in terms of the impact that it had on the environment. Started in a kind of really small scale, with essentially direct working with growers, buy surplus and odd-shaped produce that we put in a curated box of seasonal produce that we deliver to people's doors across the UK now. We're not in Scotland, but we just launched into kind of Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool this last week. We've got about 70,000 customers. We do about 40,000 deliveries a week. And we've just raised a bunch of funding as well. We've just raised about £16 million to essentially help us scale and build, move away from G Sheets into a bit more of a tech-enabled business rather than just G Sheet-enabled business.
Now, Amy, you're hearing this story for the first time. I've witnessed this, not a close hand, but I've seen it from the start as an observer and friend of Deepak's, and he's missing some key information here, which I want to bring to the table, because you don't go from zero, run a couple of markets to 70,000 customers in a few years without some good stories. And the key bit I think that everyone needs to hear this morning is that when I knew Deepak, he was working on a fitness instruction startup where he would do press ups and put videos of himself on the internet and hope that people would follow, and he was going down that. Meanwhile, Emily, his wife, was the one that was going to the local markets, buying the wonky fruit and veg produce and selling it onto the local restaurants. And I remember sitting with Deepak and him saying, you were saying to me, oh yeah, I was like, how's it going? He's going, yeah, the fitness thing is cool. I'm getting some followers, and yeah, but my wife Emily, she's doing this thing. And I was like, well, what do you think? She said, hey, I think I should join my wife on her business. Which is probably it seems like in hindsight that was the right decision. So I love that fact that you were both doing your things, and then obviously you joined Emily, and look what you've built. I wanted to dive in on what happened in COVID last year, and then we're going to come across to you, Sam, and your story. But tell us where you were at when the first lockdown happened, and then what happened in those subsequent months.
Sure. So we were delivering about 8,000 boxes just before lockdown. And I remember this well. I think March 2020 was the first kind of lockdown. The first lockdown was announced. Just overnight, we saw about 10 times the orders that we were getting on a daily basis, just essentially hitting our website. It didn't crash our website. Thank God for small mercies. But we essentially took the orders, but we had to stop, literally press the pause button whilst we showed up our fulfillment and operations. We just were not geared for that level of business. So and essentially that in 2020 we had this massive growth. So 2020-21 we grew about 600%, just purely on the back of that wave of initial demand where people needed to stock up on essentials, but then people also change their behavior. So there's a stat here which I'd like to come. So there's about 23 years for the online grocery market to grow up to about 7% of the overall grocery sales. In the first 12 weeks of lockdown, the proportion of that food bought online moved from 7% to 13%. So you can see, 23 years and 12 weeks, just the sheer scale. And I think that shifted behaviors as well in terms of people wanting to people would traditionally walk into a store, look at the quality of produce and leave the kind of wonky and the misshapen in supermarket aisles and things like that. But now they're open to getting things delivered to their door. They're happy with the quality. They're happy with the overall, and they're willing to be educated as well, which is great, because supermarkets are not good at educating customers about where does food come from, how did it reach supermarket aisles. If you ask kids, they'll tell you, where do fruits grow in supermarket aisles, right? So I think that whole bit is missing. With that, it becomes a very financial transaction, and we want to take away people on a journey which is not financial, which is all about the environmental, about the social element of labor that goes to producing the produce. There's a big driver crisis that is brewing on our doorsteps in terms of bringing those stories to life to people, so that people just don't think, where can I buy the cheapest apples or bananas, right? We really bring people on a journey where we go, it takes 100 liters of water to grow a kilo of bananas. That's about 8 bananas. 100 liters. That's a huge amount of natural resource that goes into, growing bananas. And the cost of it is 15 or 20 pence in the UK. People just look at it and go, I'm just going to chuck a banana with black spots in the bin because I've just paid 20p for it. So it's just a financial transaction. People have not been exposed to the fact that we grow this banana on Costa Rica, we ship it all the way to this country, we ripen it in chambers, and then it goes into supermarket, it's displayed in supermarket aisles. That cost is not 20p, I'm sorry, but that's a huge environmental social cost.
And what is the best? Sorry, we could probably talk about this all night.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
But what is the best way of communicating? What is the most effective way of educating everyday consumers?
I think for us, we use the box as a medium to every week we have a letter in the box that talks about where does the produce come from, why is it in the box, whether it's odd, surplus, whatever that is, and also stories like that about the supply chain to say how has supply chain affected the availability of produce and therefore affected what people eat, and talking about seasonal availability as well, about weather patterns affecting what people get in their box. Because people are used to getting strawberries in winter and 24/7 availability, 365 availability for every single produce, which is not the case in the real world.
And of course, another way you're telling that story is by delivering at night, because because it's reduced carbon emissions. And so people are going, well, why do they deliver at night? Why does Oddbox it's this like we used to get milk on our doorstep. Now we get Oddbox on our doorstep when we wake up, which is exciting. Kids love it. And it's like lower carbon emissions. Well, why is it lower at night? So the education, doing a great job with that as well, saving money for the business. So talking deliveries, I want to just hop across now to someone who's built an electric delivery business. So Sam, take us back to the beginning of this. I remember you from your kind of environmental sort of study days, almost 20 years ago, and when we were traveling together. But how did you get into building and starting Zedify?
Yeah, thanks, Ben. As you say, I was in academia for my sins, and I was I'd been doing some consulting in environmental policy, specifically looking at biofuels and how they could potentially reduce CO2 emissions. And I was getting a bit disillusioned with why the pace of change was so slow. I was a cog in the research of these projects, but I didn't feel like I was particularly empowered to drive change that I could actually see. It's all felt very removed from anything that was very applied. So I dropped out of my PhD. And I've always loved cycling, and I was looking around at the time and thinking, why are our streets so congested and just really difficult environments to ride bikes, and why can't we be more like the Dutch or the Danish? What's happening? But at the same time, it was the early 2010s, and there was just this boom in e-commerce, and it was really just extraordinary growth. And I thought, we can't keep adding vans to our cities. We can't use a 20th century delivery system when we're moving into an e-commerce driven retail environment. The van numbers are going through the roof. It's one of the key areas where we're going backwards on CO2 emissions. We have 4 million vans in the UK. A large proportion of those are out doing deliveries. And it's just going to get worse if we use a 20th century delivery model of using the same vehicle from these big regional distribution centers to come down the motorway into a city and then use the same vehicle in the congested historic city centers that we have that were just never designed for vehicle traffic. So with that in mind, Zedify was really set up to break the connection between the vehicles that are well suited for transporting bulk goods on motorways and highways and create these local consolidation hubs on the edge of city centers that act as gateways for goods coming into cities, where they can be remoded onto a more suitable and more appropriate vehicle. So at the moment, that's electric cargo bikes. It might become automated robots next week. We don't know, but at the moment, it's cargo bikes. And we also, by having that local hub, we can employ local teams. We can use them as consolidation gateways for outbound goods, so we can service local businesses with their outbound shipments. We can go on collection rounds with local businesses and ship those goods with national carriers and international carriers outbound. So we can just decouple the traffic that's moving around cities for logistics from that which is better suited for roads. And in doing so, we can greatly reduce the spatial footprint, just the sheer volume of road space that's taken up by the logistics system in a city, because of all the consolidation of those routes from multiple customers onto a consolidated cargo bike round. But obviously the CO2 emissions are massively reduced as well. So, and I think that applies also with electric vans, because we'll see electric vans become commonplace over the next few years. But they're not the panacea that the motor industry would have us believe. So.
And where are you up to now? Like, how many bikes do you have? What hubs have you got, and where are you hoping to move into?
Yeah, so we're a franchise network. So we have 10 hubs in 9 cities at the moment. We just opened Bristol and Winchester. I think we're opening in Exeter in the next few weeks or months. Should be good. We're in London, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Cambridge, Norwich, Brighton and Hove, Southampton, Winchester and Bristol at the moment. We'd like to be in all large towns and cities within 3 years in the UK, and then look at the European market beyond that. In terms of metrics, we're quite small still. I think year to date we've done around 600,000 deliveries.
Not that small.
Yeah, but in the scale of the parcel market, the parcel market is just extraordinarily large. It's a well over £10 billion market in the UK, and around 33% of that can be done by cargo bikes, both in terms of the territorial overlap with the population, that's the consumer population being so urban, but also just the profile of that freight that would be a good fit for cargo bikes. So it's a huge potential market. And then in terms of impact, our calculations, we say we're saving at around 500 tons of CO2 a year at the moment, but that can scale quite quickly. Yeah.
I'm glad you quit that PhD, Sam.
Yeah.
Oh my. Yeah.
And that Deepak quit his fitness business. It's fantastic to hear that you talk very humbly, both of you, about what you're achieving, but it's significant already. What's the big challenge next for you both? So Deepak, I know you've just gone through a big fundraising round, was that the challenge? And now you're like, right, it's all about hiring or is it the technology, or is it the competition, the regulation? What are these barriers coming up, Deepak?
Sure. I think in a funny way, we're not looking to raise investment. So it's just purely the sector, DTC sector has gone through a massive boom, as Sam was mentioning. So there's just a lot of investor interest. But I think our biggest challenge, actually, clearly it's scale and all the good things that go with scale, the normal business challenges. But I think our biggest challenge, as we see, is making the link between food waste and climate change, and making that very loud and clear, because for plastic waste clearly has hogged the limelight, and for good reasons, the Blue Planet effect. Now, food waste, we think clearly we should, that food waste should be next on the agenda of people making the link between not wasting food and having a positive impact. I think Project Drawdown mentioned that food waste is the single biggest, solution, or that people could focus on and make micro actions leading to macro impact, which everybody can control. So that's what I would say is our biggest challenge in making that story, as you're saying, Amy. How do we bring that story to life in a more digestible format rather than just throwing stats at people? Is changing behaviors, I think, would be our biggest long-term challenge.
Sam, what about you? What's on the table challenge-wise?
Yeah, we're just going through an investment round at the moment, so we're looking to raise some money to scale up and speed up that rollout. So obviously that's at the forefront of my mind at the moment. But beyond that, I think in a similar vein to what Deepak's, the big challenge for us is to change mindsets of our business customers, and for them to understand that the existing model doesn't have to be
And we've all been Sam, Claire's asking, what about humans? Because we've all been on a late night kind of bike ride through the West End of London or in Edinburgh during the Fringe Festival. But is electric bikes and the work you're in, are you considering looking beyond deliveries, or is it deliveries of people rather than goods, or are you firmly focused on goods?
I think for now we're just focused on goods. As you say, there's a huge opportunity with active travel and mobility with people. There are different technical and insurance and regulatory issues to overcome with that, and it wouldn't necessarily fit the model, because for us the key is to maximize the profitability and productivity going through our hubs, because that's one of our main overheads. And that wouldn't necessarily work with moving people, which tends to be a more point-to-point model. So that's not to say that there aren't opportunities there. It'd be great to see other companies pick up on that.
And are you going to deliver odd boxes one day?
Maybe. Who knows? We deliver a lot of veg boxes already for companies, so it's something we can do. But
I didn't know other veg boxes were available, Deepak.
That's the plan, Ben. That's the grand plan. All
right. We look forward to you two uniting and taking over. Just Amy, anything else? Final question for these two before we move on.
No, I think the thing that really stands out for both of this conversation with both of them is that behavioral change, and it's the behavioral change that needs to happen through storytelling, which is so powerful. And it's the fact that, Sam, Deepak, you're literally, like I said to start with, you're literally building the foundations for us to stand on steady ground moving forward. Like, this is, you guys are building the solutions that we so urgently need. So no, it's more of a reflection than a question. We're running out of time, but I'm so grateful that you both came, for all four of the founders. But it's really challenging, really inspiring, and and I hope other people are feeling the same. I'm sure they are.
Totally. Deepak and Sam, thank you so much for joining us today, and good luck with your next stage.
Thanks for inviting us. Thank you.
Cheers. All right, Amy. So yeah, I as always, I'm like full of energy, and also the other thing that I just wanted to reflect on quickly before we go to a breakout session, which you're all invited to, by the way, come and chat to us at the bar or the cafe, is just actually the momentum these four have got. So this is kind of why you have to extract it out of them sometimes, because they're not. There's a lot of founders out there who are always shouting about that, this is that, and then you look behind it, you're like, okay, so you're good at fundraising, but have you really built a sustainable business impact model and product? But with these four, they're doing it really well, effectively already. And Designer X is already an international brand that's delivering thousands. Priska is like, in the last 12 weeks, is like demand is outstripping supply. That's her challenge. Deepak, obviously the same with Oddbox, and the fact that they built a sophisticated supply chain behind this so quickly is amazing. And obviously Sam with Zedify has just like nailed the opportunity and the positioning in the marketplace. So it's exciting, right?
It is so exciting, and they're just all so smart in every way. They've just nailed it, and I love how, like Priska says, that she was so tenacious, and I think this is what everybody's got in common. It's like she just kept going to different chemists, different to try and figure it out. And the fact that through all of these founders, is their integrity shines all the way through, from the description of the vegetables that are in your box and like why they're there. Again, it comes back to the storytelling. This is next level integrity, awesomeness that there needs to be more of in the world. Hence,
absolutely.
Here, hey,
exactly. That's why we're here. So, what's coming up next for Raaise, and for those who have joined us this morning, what's going to happen next?
Yeah, well, it's like I said, it's incredibly exciting times, and we are building our crowdfunding platforms for the very best of the best climate startups to raise capital through us, because, as I mentioned, there's big barriers to getting these type of businesses up and running. So we're hoping to smash through those barriers to help. Meanwhile, while we're doing all of the technical stuff in the background, we really want to start supporting startups just like these as soon as possible. And so we're building and developing a type of membership. Join us to help and support even before you can actually physically invest, just to get behind and support. So there's going to be a lot more of that to come very, very soon. And with COP in Glasgow pending, I think there's like 51 days until it's all over. We're going to be doing a bit of a campaign around that too. So I've not given a lot away, but there's
no. I mean, you hide stuff, people want it more. That's the theory. No, we've got some exciting stuff coming. But thank you for joining us this morning. I'm sure you thought it was a worthwhile use of an hour. I certainly did, listening to those stories and connecting with those founders. We are now, Amy and I are going to jump to a session. So if you look on your navigation on Hopin, there's something that says sessions, which is now lit up. If you hop over there, there's one session that says come and chat with us. We're going to go in there. Just come say hi. If you want to share a reflection, ask us a question, or share something you're working on, or anything related to what our mission is, come and join in. We'll be there for the next 30 minutes. Until next time, thank you and goodbye.